I forget most days that I ever had surgery. It felt like I was given a brand new back. There's nothing I can't do. I can squat, I can lift. I can't tell you how many times I've chased somebody down, how many times I've wrestled somebody, and I don't think about my back. And crazy to come from, being bedridden to like what I am now. And now I'll sit for an 8-hour drive. I'll like hunch over, I'll bend over, and no discomfort, no pain. Like it's crazy. Like I said, it feels like I was given a brand new back.
Welcome back to the Spine Pod. I'm Courtney Schutze. I'm here with my co-host Brady Riesgraf, and we have such a special episode for you guys today. We've been wanting to do an episode like this since we started the Spine Pod, and we finally made it happen. Tell everybody what we did.
For the first time, we get to sit down and talk through a true patient experience going through spine surgery from the front all the way to the back to where he is now. It's really been a 3-year journey for him. We got to sit down with Andrew, who is a current police officer, so super active, very physically demanding, and we get to hear his story. And I think it's such a powerful story that he got to share today.
Absolutely. Andrew had a 3-level disc replacement by friend of the pod, Dr. Todd Lanman, which who else do you want to do your 3-level disc replacement but Dr. Todd Lanman? But he really did. He told us everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, the full experience that he had, which was just, we're so excited to share with our audience because we love talking to surgeons. We love talking to the industry and getting that insight. But at the end of the day, it's really about the patient and what happens when you're the one going through it, right? So Andrew was a perfect person for us to start with and sharing that type of story.
Well, I think everybody that's listening to this has been through his experience, right? Or know someone that has been through his experience. And he really talks about the ups and downs, the whole thing, right? It was not a progression, like just a straight linear progression for him. It takes time and it takes work, and it's not just all sunshine and rainbows, right? And so I think that's as on the patient side too. You talk about this community that we're building. We've worked on building over the last 2 years, and a lot of that has been surgeon education and being able to give patients experiences of what the surgeons see and what the surgeons know. But as a patient, you also want to hear from patients. So I think we've been talking about doing this for such a long time, and be able to sit down with someone in a role like his that he asks so much of his body, right? Mm-hmm. And he pushes it, and he's a young individual who has all this longevity on the backside. And I think it's exciting to be able to sit down with him and hear that story. And now where he is, 18 months after surgery with practically no limitations.
Yep. It's incredible to hear, and it's so, I think, important for patients going through that experience right now to see someone that understands what they're going through and that they're on the other side of it. If you're a patient and you're experiencing that, or you have a similar story, we'd love to hear from you. Like Brady said, it's been really cool to see this community that's starting to build around the podcast of, patients reach out to us all the time asking for, surgeons in their area or advice. And it's really humbling for us to see that. And we want to be able to share even more stories, because that's what this podcast is about is, hey, you're not in it alone. Andrew talks about how going through back pain can feel really isolating, and you can feel like you don't know what you should do. And we hope we can be a little sliver on the internet that can give hope and education. And so we are so excited to be able to have our first patient episode.
Well, I think this story is the light at the end of the tunnel, right? This is the story that you want to hear as a patient when you've been dealing with this. Maybe it's 3 months, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's 6 years, whatever that time frame looks like for you. And you've possibly done conservative care. Mm-hmm. Maybe you've had a small procedure done, and now you're looking at something bigger down the road. What does the next step look like? And he talks through the entire journey. But truly, you see at the end of the line, he just smiles, right? He's all smiles. Yeah. And I think being able to share that hope and be truly a ray of sunshine is really, really, really powerful. And I'm glad he got to share his story today.
I am too. So please enjoy this patient story.
Today we have such a special episode. For the first time, we get to sit down with a patient. Andrew, thank you for taking the time and sitting down with us today.
Yeah, man, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. I thought this would be a neat experience. So yeah, thank you.
No, we've been talking about doing this for such a long time.
I think since we started this, we've said, like, a broken record. I want a patient on. We want a patient on, but it's got to be the right patient. And we were so excited when we heard your story and that we're going to get to share it with our audience.
There's two things that are exciting. One, we get to have our first patient on the podcast, which is so exciting to be able to tell that story, because really the whole reason that this came about was talk about the patient journey, right? Mm-hmm. And this is a complex journey, and it's tough to as you've experienced, it's tough to navigate, right? And we'll talk about that today. But then finding the right provider and finding the right care and getting the, I think partially the courage, but then partially the knowledge of what's this going to look like, after surgery, and how's that all going to go. But I think the second part that's really exciting is you went to one of the surgeons that we know very well, who's also been on the podcast, Dr. Todd Lanman, who I know you think very highly of. We think very, very highly of. I've known him for a long time. So
had surgery himself as well. So.
Seriously, he's done it all. So it's exciting to tell that story. But kind of how I want to start, I want to start with you. Can you give everybody just a brief background about yourself and what you do? Because you're a very active guy yourself.
Yeah. So I'm 38 now. Been a police officer here in California for a little over 8 years now. Very active. I love running, weightlifting, any sort of exercise. One, I love it. It's fun. And, you just feel good afterwards, like the endorphins, all that kind of stuff. Right. And I'm one of those that, like, at the end of a long day, like, I don't go home and, pound a couple beers or anything. I don't do any of that. I like to go run or work out, and that's my form of just relaxing and, de-stressing. Also, like, my job's physically demanding, so I want to do it, as long as I can and stay healthy and, avoid injuries and that sort of thing. So that's why, I'm pretty active. And then on top of that, I have to be active because, like, I'm a fat boy at heart, and I'm a foodie. So I always overeat. I always indulge. I'm a glutton. And so, yeah, I have to exercise. If not, I'd be pretty chunky.
You're not the only one here. We tend to enjoy
like
sweets
a snack
as well.
attack for sure.
Yeah. That's too funny. Well, I want to get into it. Obviously you were super active beforehand, but we hear this from patients all the time is either you kind of progressively degrade over time or you have an event. What was it like when you first had that back pain for the first time? Did you have an injury, or what was it that spurred that?
What it was when I became a cop, I mean, the duty belt, the gear, it's not conducive to good back health, So over time, I little backaches here and there and whatnot. And then it was, let me see, it was like December of 2021 or January, somewhere around that time. I just started getting like a lot of backaches, like very tight soreness, and getting in and out of the car, like it was just bothering me. That was bugging me the most. And then just one day I got out of the car and back pain. Like, I was hurting. And then I had that dreaded, what's it called? The lateral shift, where like your pelvis, your waist pulls to one side and your upper back's going this way. Like, you're kind of crooked and like involuntarily locking to the muscles. And then you later find out it's because your back's trying to protect you from that injury site, right? It's trying to pull away from that. So I had that back pain, had that lateral shift, and I'm thinking, like anything else, like something hurts, give it a couple of days, it'll go away. Next day I woke up, I was bedridden. I mean, it hurt. I couldn't walk without pain. Everything hurt. So thank God I had filled out like a minor injury report the day prior at work. And so I let my supervisor know and got to take a little bit of time off, a couple weeks. And after a couple weeks, I was, okay, I'm good. So I go back to work. Like nothing had happened, but there was still like residual discomfort and pain and tightness. And it wasn't until one of those like holiday weekends, they sent my partner and I to go work at the beach, because all the tourism the tourists that come into town and whatnot, and it gets busy. And sitting was killing me. And then we're driving over like the sand dunes and everything. And my partner, he's a nut. He's over here, flooring
He's enjoying it.
Yeah. And just the bumpy terrain and everything was it was hurting. Every bounce was hurting. And I finally tell him, like, hey man, just stick on the flat road. My back hurts. And that every day was feeling worse and worse. And I felt like, man, I feel like I'm going to throw out my back or something's going to happen again. And then the following week, we helped out some other officers with putting somebody in a wrap. Like whenever someone's, just because you're in handcuffs doesn't mean you can't kick, run or headbutt and all that. So if you're combative, they're going to put you in a wrap, and it's exactly what you think it is. They restrain your full body. We go down, my partner and I, to pick up this person. And when I picked them up, of course, I bent at the waist, and I turned to the left and instantly felt just this sharp nuke in my lower right side, and it hurt. And again, lateral shift, I'm crooked. I could barely walk. I'm thinking, okay, some ibuprofen, some muscle relaxers, give it a couple of days, it'll go away. And so then the next day I get up and I'm hurting. I'm barely able to move, but I go to work and I tell my partner, I'm like, hey man, I'm not gonna be able to chase anybody. Like, I hope we don't get in a fight, like nothing like that. And I'm just praying like the entire day. Went to work the next day. The following day felt a little worse. And I'm like, man, I don't think this doesn't feel like it's gonna get any better anytime soon. And then on my Friday, the last day of that week, I called out sick because I was bedridden again. And then fortunately I had filled out again, like minor injury report at work. And I had the one from a couple months prior. So my sergeant goes, hey dude, go to the hospital, like get really checked out. Go to the hospital. They did the typical like x-rays, right? Like bones are going to be fine, but it's like, I knew at this point, I already knew it's going to be like a disc issue or something. Right. So, I go to a workman's comp doctor, and in workman's comp, you've had cases where people lie or like they act like they're hurt so they could get time off paid and whatnot. This doctor, I remember him looking at me like, are you really hurt? And he goes,
giving you the once over, huh?
Right. And then he goes, oh, it might be, a disc issue. Sounds like L5S1. He's like, I know that because I've had it. And he starts asking me questions to see if I feel the symptoms and whatever. Like, yeah, I'll order the MRI. I do the MRI a couple of days later, and then you have to go back and go over the results with him. And then he walks in, he goes, hey, you weren't kidding, man. He goes, you blew out your L5S1, 9mm herniation. And then the L304, L405 were, all three discs were degenerated, but the L304, L405 were also bulging like 3-4 millimeters. But that L5S1, 9mm herniation, big sucker. He goes, I'm going to refer you to an orthopedic surgeon, a back specialist, and then you guys go from there. In the meantime, I'll order you PT. So yeah, he referred me to an orthopedic surgeon. I did my homework, my research, and asked about him, and everyone was like, dude, he's one of the best in San Diego. He's a good guy. He's a good doctor. So I go to him. I'm doing PT in the meantime. I'm doing, planks, side planks. And there's a lot of time between, the appointments. This isn't like, you would think that workman's comp would treat you like a professional athlete where, when they get hurt, they get an MRI like the next day and they're in surgery the next day after that, You would think they're trying to get you back in the field as quickly as possible. You would think they would just expedite everything, but no. So I see the orthopedic surgeon. He looks at my images and he goes, hey man, he goes, yeah, you need a microdiscectomy, and you could have this yesterday because it's a huge herniation. I didn't have the pain down the leg or the foot drop and all that. It just felt like there was like a dagger stuck in my lower right glute, like the top of my glute and my lower back. And I was able to bend over, but coming up, oh man, it would fire up. And so he goes, what do you want to do? And like what I've heard from everybody that the layman crowd says like, never go under a knife, especially for your back or nothing like that. Never get surgery. And that coupled with everyone who I ever met who had back surgery, it was always a fusion. Mm-hmm. Not to say that fusion it can't be successful for you, but everyone that I met had a horror story with the fusion thing. And so I was like, I don't want to go under the knife. I don't want to get surgery. And I go, hey man, let me hit this. Let me try to do physical therapy and let me see if I can beat this. And the surgeon, I mean, he was like, all right, well, I'm going to give you my personal number. And then he goes, when you're ready for surgery, I hope not, but like when you're ready for it, just shoot me a text or give me a call and we'll schedule you. I'm like, cool. So I took it as a challenge, started PTing the heck out of it. And like I mentioned earlier, I did everything short of witchcraft for my back, chiropractor, traction therapy, massage, acupuncture, BPC 157, the peptide, because it helps you heal faster. But again, I mean, for small injuries, things like that, I'm sure it works. But for something this severe, yeah, like, no, it wasn't going to work. And then they were like, the mornings were the worst. Because you know how they tell you, like, when you go to sleep, your discs inflate. And so in the morning, the back pain was the worst. Couple months later, I woke up in the middle of the night, and as ridiculous as it sounds, I sneezed and I threw my back out. And that day I gave up. I'm like, yeah, I need surgery. You know, because it's not like you break an arm or break a bone where like 6 weeks later you're gonna be fine. Like it's a guarantee that's gonna heal. Like this is not guaranteed, you know? So I text the surgeon. I'm like, hey man, I'm ready. And so yeah, we scheduled a microdiscectomy. And I remember asking him, well, what about the other 2 discs above that one? Those are also degenerated and bulging. And he's like, no, well, the pain's coming from here. And then it's workman's comp. They're going to do the bare minimum. Like, let's attack the microdiscectomy and let's see if that works and whatnot. So
how long was it from your initial injury to that microdiscectomy that you went through PT and everything else?
So I hurt myself. It was June 3rd of 2022, I think. And so so all of June, PT, July, August, September, October, because I had my microdiscectomy in November.
Okay.
And are you working during this period? Are you unable to work because of the pain? I'm
unable to work. Like,
yeah. So your life has just been completely.
Oh, it's the worst because one, I can't even go to light duty because sitting
hurts.
It kills.
Yeah.
Any little movement, everything hurts. Like you're bedridden. You're a slave to your house. Cause I would want to drive or go somewhere or hang out with friends. And it hurts way too much. And then you come home and then like the next day you're paying for it. And you feel like you're going through this alone. Like you feel like, why is it like, I don't know anyone else who's going through this kind of injury. Like people don't understand and you feel like you're alone and it just, going from a lifestyle, an active lifestyle to now you're sedentary at home. It's not only physical pain, but it's emotional and mental. There's there were a lot of dark days for sure. And not to sound too dramatic or anything, but there are times where I'm like, dude, this isn't a life worth living. Like is this my forever? And, but you hold on to that hope and you move, you push forward and you try to stay strong and you try to do, you would have done anything. Like if they said, hey, this will heal you, this will help, you would have done anything. End up getting the microdiscectomy. Recovery was rough, but any progress is good progress. And so I was running by like week 7 and everything, but I didn't feel 100%. I felt like I was maybe 75% of what I used to be. But I figured, I just had back surgery. Just give it time. You'll get stronger. You'll get better. And all this will eventually slowly go away. So I was running by like week 7. And then I went back to work maybe at like the 2.5 month mark or so, somewhere around there. It was pretty quick. Went back to work, but I was scared. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't feel 100% confident in myself because I wasn't 100% physically. Like I said, I was always like 75, 80% of what I was. Unknowingly, you move in a certain way because you're trying to avoid pain and you're stiff in certain areas. And I was back to work for about almost a year when I started getting the back pain again. And it was all too familiar. I already knew like, I'm going to throw it out. Like it's coming. And started getting back pain. And then there was no one initial thing that triggered it, but it was just gradually every day getting worse. And then I woke up one day and I was bedridden, lateral shift, like all the above. So called my work, called the surgeon, and they scheduled me in again for another visit. We did an MRI again, and the L5S1 where they did the microdiscectomy, it was starting to bulge a little bit, but now the 2 discs above that one were bulging a little more. And then the annulus fibrosis on the L4, L5, I think it was, there was a slight tear. Mm-hmm. So now it's a ticking, any day now that one's gonna herniate.
Especially with your lifestyle and working, like you can't avoid it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm like, we need to fix this. Like, what are we going to do? And my doctor always talked about that if the workman's comp surgeon, he always mentioned that, hey, if this doesn't work, like you're going to have to get fused. And he's a fusion guy. Like he does a great job. That's his specialty. And I'm like, no, we're not, like, absolutely not. I don't want to get fused. Again, I had everyone I knew who had gone fusions, they were still hurting. You lose mobility, and then the adjacent discs start degenerating at a higher rate. Like, no, like I want to do everything I can before I do this. So then from there they did, they also mentioned doing a nerve block. So I went through the procedure where they test to see if like the nerve block would work. I forget what it's called. And they did the nerve block thing. It didn't work. And at this point, I'm like searching like crazy. I'm reading books. I'm doing everything I can. Like I mentioned earlier, I followed Dr. Stuart McGill's back mechanic book, right? Which I wish they would have issued that in elementary school. That way I would have known how to sit properly, lift, and how to take care of my back in the long run. I was doing like I'm sitting better, I'm lifting better, have better form and all that. But at this point, it's like, man, it's just too late. Yeah. So I'm doing a deep dive, I'm searching, and I had an uncle who had gotten disc replacement in his neck. I remember that. And I was talking to him and he goes, yeah, like, the pain, anything in the cervical is going to affect your arms, right? And anything in the lumbar is going to affect your legs. And he was telling me how he was having arm pain and it would go down to tingling to his fingers. And he goes, man, when I got disc replacement on my neck, like I felt better instantly, like no pain down my arm. And I think he was back to work like a week and a half later. And he goes, and that's when I thought like, man, if only they made this for the back. So I looked it up and sure thing, they do lumbar disc replacements. Search. I couldn't find much on lumbar disc replacement. Like I was looking for testimonials and everything and I found less than 5. Yeah. And it was always like a single disc and stuff. And I'm like, what, man, like it just feels like not many people have done this. Then you realize that they've been doing disc replacement in the lower back in other countries for like 20, 25 years or so now. And here in the States, it's not a popular thing. It's always fusion. It's a microcystectomy or a laminectomy and then a fusion. So started searching disc replacement, who does it, where can I get this done? YouTubed it, and right away, Dr. Lanman, his videos and everything popped up, and I could listen to the guy for hours. And so his video is good quality and everything, and he just exuded all this confidence, like it's just this is a cakewalk for him. And then, but the biggest thing for me was how he had disc replacement done on himself. And one of his videos, he shows his imaging and all that. And I'm like, oh man, like clearly like he's had disc replacement for several years now and he's doing pretty good. And he preaches what he does, right? He actually does it. And, looked into it and I thought, man, this guy's gonna be like in New York or somewhere super far, but it turns out he's in our backyard in Beverly Hills. So I started inquiring with them. He's like, hey, send me your images. And I already had all that. So I sent that over to Dr. Lanman's office, and Blair, Arlene, the whole staff, world class, awesome staff. And then he was cool enough to say, hey, why don't you see if Workman's Comp will have me do your surgery? So I hit up Workman's Comp, and they have a certain amount of surgeons in their network. And by this time I had an attorney because I wanted to get taken care of. Make sure I'm doing everything the right way. And the attorneys were like, yeah, we can only use the surgeon in their network. And the surgeon that you have right now is the best one. I'm like, well, my surgeon, Workman's Comp surgeon, never brought up disc replacement. Why is it always fusion? So, yeah, they didn't allow me to use Dr. Lanman. So then I go see my work surgeon, the Workman's Comp surgeon, and I'm like, hey, like, what about disc replacement? And he's like, oh, is that what you want to do? Okay. And it turns out he had done, just a couple hundred or so. And through insurance, they won't approve you to do more than 2 discs in one surgery. So Workman's Comp surgeon said, hey, we can do 2 discs now, and then we'll do the third one like a year later. And I'm thinking, I already went through one back surgery. If I could do all 3 discs in one surgery, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to do 2 and then wait a year and do the third one. Not to mention all the scar tissue buildup and the potential complications and everything, right? And then I said, well, what if I just paid you cash and out of insurance and do all 3 discs? And he's like, no, my guy. He's like, 1, that's a super expensive surgery. And then 2, he's like, he's very, very by the book. He's like, I'm not going to do 3 discs and whatnot. And then at one point when he's talking to me, he tells me, you know what, come to think of it, I don't think I've ever done an L304 disc replacement. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, absolutely not. Like, like, no offense or anything, but like, I'm not going to have you do that then. And, ventured out. And then again, I met with Dr. Lanman and everything. And when I met with him, dude's a stud, very cool, very personable. You meet a lot of doctors who are like, oh, well, like very wishy-washy, very shady. He's transparent. He's honest. And right away I felt like I can trust this guy. And this is a surgeon who I want to do my surgery. Dude's the Michael Jordan, right? he looked at my imaging, and I remember him saying, because in my reports it said arthritis in the facet joints, and if you have too much arthritis, you can't do a disc replacement, right? So unfortunately, but fortunately for me, I was young enough to where I was healthy enough to do disc replacement. He goes, dude, your facet joints are fine. Just the reports, the MRI reports are always going to put that. He's like, I can get you back, like, and you'll be back to like, being your old self and doing all the things that you wanted to do. And I'm like, really? Like, that's what I want. I just want, I want my life back,
Mm-hmm.
And they gave me the quote, and I'm like, this is my back, my one back for the rest of my life. There's no price tag on this. I'm going to do this before anything else. I'm not going to do a fusion and lose mobility and have all that. I'm going to give this a shot. This is what I want. I trust this guy. Let's do it. And so, yeah, I ended up doing the 3-level disc replacement for the L3 through the S1. Another thing I left out. So the workman's comp surgeon, he has done disc replacement, but it's always like single level and whatnot. Every time I would go to my appointments, I would rarely meet with him. It was something like a doctor from his staff. And I'm not going to name drop or anything like that, but there was a doctor on his staff. He wasn't a orthopedic surgeon, but I remember I asked him like, hey, like, how come I can't just do disc replacement? And he goes, oh, because it doesn't work. He goes, it works for the neck because it's only like, carrying 20 pounds or so, but the lower back, you're carrying your entire upper body weight. That it doesn't work. I'll never forget that. It's just the disservice that we give to people who could have had disc replacement, and you fuse them like that. That's sad. And I was very, very lucky that I found Dr. Lanman and that I was able to do that surgery. And fast forward to the day of surgery, it was July 25th of 2024. So it's been about a year and a half now. Mm-hmm. And I'm not the type of guy that gets nervous for something until the day of, or excited for something until the day of. So I was fine. And then the day of, like, I wake up, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. These discs that I had for my entire life, and we're taking them out, and we're going to do this artificial disc. So nervous, but had my family come down, my mom, my dad, my brother. We drove up to Beverly Hills that morning. Surgery center, staff there is amazing. They're great. Dr. Lanman walks in, and I think he had just done a surgery before me. And he walks in like, it's just a cakewalk. Like this, I do this all day, every day, man. Like you're in good hands. And so that made me feel so much better. Going to surgery, I wake up, and I'm not going to lie. Like, I was in a lot of pain. Like, it hurts. And pain is like case by case. Like, everyone's different. Some people do better with pain. Some people don't. I, unfortunately, it hurts. Same thing with tattoos. Like, some people love getting tattoos. It hurts. And so yeah, I wake up and I'm hurting, and the nurses and the staff there, amazing. Nurse came in regularly, check up on me. She's like, hey, when you're ready, like, let's go for a walk. And so at one point I said, all right, let's full send this. Let's get up, let's walk. And I'm talking like baby steps, just, from here to the end of the wall. It hurts, but pretty incredible that you're walking after you've gotten, take your disc out in your spine and put an artificial disc in there, right? So baby steps to the end of the wall, and I'm tired. I'm like, oh, we come back. I lay down. I think we went for another walk later on. At some point I get discharged. So my parents come in, we walk to the car, drive from Beverly Hills back to San Diego. I come back home. I'm a fat boy, so I ate that night. I had an appetite, and then I knocked out. And then the next day, the was it the nerve block or the pain meds and all that from that, because they go in through your abdomen, that wears off. So now not only am I aching in my back and my legs, but in my abdomen area. And what's crazy is that, like, the disc replacement, it kind of expands you a little bit, right? So it's going to stretch tendons, ligaments, and all that. I don't know if you two have ever had growing pains, but it feels like that times 1,000. Like, I felt pain down in my calves. Oh. Just a lot of aching. So they'll give you these massagers that these wraps that you put around your calves, and it's just massaging you to get blood flow and whatnot. That helped a lot. But the next day and they told me, hey, try to walk as much as you can throughout the day, every day. So the next day, my mom stayed with me for like an extra 2.5 weeks or so. So the next day, my mom was like, hey, let's get up, let's walk. So I'm just doing baby steps throughout the living room, throughout the day. Cause I as soon as I did that, I would eat a little bit and I would knock out. I was like, man, I'd rather be asleep, you know, instead of endure this pain. So I slept a lot. And then every time I'd wake up, same thing, walk a little bit, use the bathroom, eat a little bit. And then I want to say by like the 4th or 5th day, my mom was like, hey, let's go outside. Let's go for a walk outside. Let's get some sunlight. So walked outside and I'm like, you know, like grandpa, you know, just baby steps walking. I maybe walked like a block, if that, half a block, and go back to the house. And then I think it was by maybe this is like the 4th or 5th day. The next day, walking a little further. A couple of days later, I was able to walk. We pulled off a mile. We walked half a mile out, half a mile back, boom, mile. Felt pretty good. And then at the 7th or 8th day mark, because I'll run the stairs at the convention center in downtown San Diego. We walked to the stairs and I saw the stairs. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna try to walk up these stairs. And boom, walked up the stairs, did a couple sets. I'm like, oh, look at that. The next day, added another set. And then within 2 weeks, I was walking 10 sets up the flights of stairs and everything. And I was moving a lot better, moving good. At the 4th or 5th week mark, I can't remember, but Dr. Lanman wanted updated some x-rays to see if the vertebrae, if the bone integrated into the disc well and all. So did my x-rays and then he goes, yeah, man, looks great. I'm going to prescribe you physical therapy. Prescribes me physical therapy. Started doing that. So I started doing planks, side planks, a lot of core strengthening stuff. Still walking a lot every day. By week 6 or 7, I get to the stairs and I'm like, I think I could jog up these stairs. So I checked in with Dr. Lanman. I'm like, hey, I feel like I can jog a little bit. Like, what do you think? He goes, hey, listen to your body. If you're going to jog very slowly and go on light surfaces. But, you know, me being stubborn and being a typical guy, like we always want to push the envelope, right? So by week 7, I started jogging up the stairs and I was like, man, like I'm getting there. Like this progress is just like, you know, exponentially getting better now. And yeah, by week 7, week 8, I was started running faster and faster, started sprinting up the stairs. I went back to light duty. Oh, I forgot to mention, I had gone back to light duty at like the 3-week mark. Sitting at a desk, just, you know, typing and whatnot. It didn't hurt anymore to sit. You're super stiff, super tight and all that. And there's little aches here and there, but unlike when I got the microdiscectomy where I never got better, like this, I started feeling better. And then I went back to work full duty at about the 3-month mark. And like most people who get disc replacement, you're still a little very cautious, very weary. Like, man, is this just going to fall out? Is it going to break? Is it going to, you know, am I going to hurt myself? So I was very careful with like what I was doing at work, but without even thinking, like one day some guy takes off from us and I chase him, catch up to him, grab him, put him in cuffs. And then I'm like, right away, I'm like, am I okay? Am I okay? Am I back? And I'm like, yeah, I feel good. And then just that with like the gym stuff, like when I was going back to the gym and lifting weights, I was doing very, very light dumbbells, like, you know, 15-pound dumbbells and just doing high reps. I started lifting a little heavier. And then when it came to like shoulder pressing, I went up to the 40s and I'm like, man, is this too heavy for my disc? And now I've, you know, over time I got up to the 80-pound dumbbells, shoulder pressing. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. And just with time, you get that confidence back in yourself and in the disc. And we're here a year and a half later. And it was in no time. It was just a couple months where I was like already confident in my disc, in my back, and I trusted my back. Not like the microdiscectomy where I just didn't feel 100%. With this, I felt really good. I was like in the 90% of like how good and confident I feel. And then not even 6 months later, 4 months later, I was like, man, like I feel phenomenal. And I'll tell you that came quick, and I forget most days that I ever had surgery. It felt like I was given a brand new back. There's nothing I can't do. I can squat, I can lift. I can't tell you how many times I've chased somebody down, how many times I've wrestled somebody, and I don't think about my back. And crazy to come from, you know, being bedridden to like what I am now. And now I'll sit for an 8-hour drive. I'll like hunch over, I'll bend over, and no discomfort, no pain. Like it's crazy. Like I said, it feels like I was given a brand new back. You know, so at work that like a lot of the guys will poke fun and be like, oh, RoboCop over here, like Mr. Bionic. And I'm like, hey man, I don't get back pain though. So, and yeah, like I said, I'm back to lifting weights, running. There's nothing I can't do. There's nothing that I can't do that I'm limited in doing. So, and I know Dr. Lanman, I expressed my thank you to him and everything, how grateful I am. And I got very lucky with him. And so that's why I hold like, he'll name drop me sometimes or bring up my story. And then, some people call me to be like, hey man, like, so how was surgery? And I assure them, I'm like, man, like you'll be fine and you're in good hands.
When you go through the patient journey and you talk to patients, you talk to surgeons, you have the story that you want to hear, right? Which is there's hope on the other side of surgery. Because I think one of the troublesome parts is, and we hear it all the time, right? As you talked about, there is this almost stigma around spine surgery and getting surgery that everything past this is going to be worse than what it is now, right? And I think a lot of that has been driven by just the technologies and what we've had for a long time. And so we're finally getting to this stage where motion preservation is one, available, but two, you're getting enough people that are getting education and materials out there. Because if you weren't able to go online and find some of that,
You never would have known.
right? You're going to battle with it as long as you can, or your only other option is fusion, right? If nothing else exists out there.
And when I was looking for alternatives, I couldn't find, like I said, I was only like less than a handful of videos where people were giving testimonials, and I just couldn't find anything. And I remember thinking like, oh, if I get the surgery and I'm successful, like I'm going to make a YouTube video, like to help. Cause I wanted that when I was going through it, and I wanted to hear like, hey, there's hope, there's this option available. But yeah, then you get healthy and you get better and you forget about it. And then like, I'm pretty shy and timid. And so I listened to your guys' podcast with Dr. Lanman. And then when he brought me up, I'm like, oh dude, that's me, And then Blair reached out from his office and was like, hey, would you be interested in doing this podcast? And I was like, yeah, because if I can help somebody or give somebody some reassurance and whatnot, and let them know that, dude, there is hope, then yeah, I would love to do that. So.
And I think it's so important too, just listening to your story, talking about it's not just physical, it is emotional, it's mental. And when you're in that much pain, it's really hard to make a decision. Like all you want is to get out of that pain. And like, if you haven't experienced it, like I haven't experienced it, I can only imagine, but talking to patients, talking to surgeons, knowing like it's a very specific experience that kind of just takes over everything. It's hard to make a good decision or a clear decision. And so you being able to share that with anyone listening that's like, I'm in that situation right now. A fusion is right in front of me and it's so hard not to just do it. I'm saying just do a bit more research. Like there are great surgeons out there that specialize in motion preservation. If you can find them, like you have a chance to be on the other side of it like you are.
Yeah. No, I definitely get where you're at that point where I'm like, let's just do a fusion. Like screw it. Like I give up, and like I can't emphasize enough. It's just the disservice we do to people, and me, speaking out of ignorance, I always think like, oh, a doctor, like he's legit. Like these doctors are phenomenal. They know what they're talking about. I could trust this guy. But like it is with any work field, you're going to have lackluster cops. You're going to have lackluster customer service from people that work at retail stores. You're going to have some lackluster, not so much lackluster, but like surgeons who just don't know, and Dr. Lanman pushing, credit to him for pushing the envelope on things and pushing the limits and all that. I mean, he's gone to that level where he found new ground, versus orthopedic surgeons who don't do disc replacement, but just our fusion guys. It's like, man, this is a whole nother level. And to think of how many people could have had disc replacement surgery and could have been healthy and lived a active lifestyle and preserved motion and all that got fused like that. And workman's comp and all that, insurances. I know Dr. Lanman, like his thing is, hopefully in 5-10 years, they're going to be like, yeah, why don't you do a disc replacement? Like, we're not going to fuse this, I hope it gets to that point where insurances are like, no, like we're going to approve a 3-level disc replacement. And that's going to be the standard.
We talk about education from a patient perspective, but the point that you just made, it's just as big of a point on the surgeon side too, right? Because how surgeons get trained and who they trained with and what devices and technologies are available is what allows them to do what they're going to do for the next 20 or 30 years, right? And so luckily, you have guys like Dr. Lanman, and we've sat down with so many incredible surgeons that do so much research. And his ex-partner, we were just down in Florida with, Dr. Jason Cuellar and Dr. Jared Ament, who's on the West Coast, and, Dr. Hodges, like all these people that we work with, they're pushing the bounds forward to improve patient care, right? And I think that's so important. But it's funny, you bring up this point, and we hear it all the time. We hear it from patients and we hear it from surgeons. is this concept that you had disc replacement, but just motion preservation in general doesn't work, right? Or it's untested, or we're still figuring out if it works, right? There are mountains of data on some of these things now. I mean, in disc replacement, we have 20-year outcomes on lumbar disc replacement. Cervical disc replacement, it's starting to get over the hurdle, right? We've got probably 8 or 10 cervical discs on the market now. We've 1 lumbar disc on the market. And it's it's crazy to hear about that and think that we're in this stage where we can still kind of say, well, that's investigational. We're not sure what that is. When there's mountains of data, and there's surgeons out there that do so many of them that, a disc is better in Dr. Lanman's hands than a fusion is, right? Because he does so many of them and he knows it so well.
Yeah.
Well, and it's the disservice to patients. It's hard for patients to understand the complexity of that, right? Which again is why we're so glad to sit down with you, and we want to get that word out of like, it's kind of hard for everyone to know. Like, you have surgeons who just haven't spent a lot of time with motion preservation, and they're like, I know I can do a fusion well in my hands, so I'm going to do what's best in my hands, which, you want your surgeon to feel confident. But there is a subset of specialized surgeons who can do motion preservation, and getting the word out about that is so important. So patients know that there is more options for you, and then you can decide for yourself if it's right for you. And like, thankfully you took the time to do that research for yourself, in like, despite feeling horrible, right? Because you're like, I'm an active person and I want this, but there were sacrifices you had to make in order for that to happen too. Can you talk a little bit about, you talked a little bit, but going a little deeper of that decision you made of you had to make sacrifice. You're like, this is my back. I only have one back. How did you work through that process and make that decision? Because you didn't know for sure if it was going to be successful, right? You still go into surgery of nothing is 100% guaranteed.
Like I said, I would have done everything before a fusion, and listening to Dr. Lanman, like, kudos to him for putting these videos. I still watch him to this day, his clips and everything. And I've sent him out to a few. For example, one of my best friends, his father-in-law had to retire early. He got medically retired because of his back, and I don't know how old he is. I'm assuming he's like in his like mid 50s or so. But he started having back pain, I think, like 10 years ago, 8 years ago or so. But he was always scared of getting surgery. And it's to the point where it's like, man, like, if you wait too long, you might fall out of that window of being able to get disc replacement and everything. But what Dr. Lanman, would bring up is like, hey, you can always get a fusion. So like, why not try this if, to keep motion and live the lifestyle that that you normally live and everything. You want to keep that. Why? That was the thing for me, is like, I can do this, and I can always get a fusion.
Mm-hmm.
And as bad as my back was, I knew I was going to need surgery. You get a lot of like physical therapists or like, holistic medicine guys who are like, oh, you don't need surgery, just do this and that. But there comes a point where like, yeah, you do need surgery, man. Like, you're not going to get that much better. And so, like I said, I did my research. I looked at my imaging. I spoke to, and the biggest thing too is don't just go off of one doctor. Like, get second opinions. They're very important, and I got lucky with finding Dr. Lanman. But yeah, I knew I can always get a fusion. Why not give it this last step? And like I mentioned, I'm like, this is my one back for the rest of my life. I'm going to do everything I can. And even just a few testimonials that I saw and everything, that was enough to where like, yeah, I want to give this a shot. But Dr. Lanman he made me feel comfortable. I trusted him, and he's the man. And the number of surgeries he's done and how he teaches this surgery and how he had it himself, I felt confident. And yeah, it was a no-brainer.
It's great to hear you talk about how the social media and the education pieces help so much. We've worked with some incredible surgeons that do exactly that. And they're really pushing the message forward. And that's the whole reason that we sat down to start this in the first place. So it's funny when you talk about testimonials, because now you were a testimonial, right? So it's so exciting to be able to sit down with you. But, we sit down with so many folks that spend so much time and put so much diligence into getting this material out there, right? Because it's not like these guys aren't busy, right? I mean, they're operating all day long. They're in clinic all day long. They're already working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And then on top of that, if they're going to go make material, that's more work that they need to do. Mm-hmm. And there's a surgeon here, Dr. Chol Kim. He does a ton of it here in San Diego. Dr. Lali Sekhan does a ton on LinkedIn. We have people out on the East Coast, Dr. Christopher Good. I mean, there are so many surgeons that are really getting the message out there. Yeah. Getting the message out there. And I think it's so good for patients to be able to hear, but I want you to go back to what you just talked about. So I think you make a really, really, really good point, which is you shouldn't just jump into surgery. And there are patients where rehab is a good thing, right? Like we should do conservative care as much as we can to see if we can heal our bodies naturally, right? But there becomes a point when it's just not getting you over the hurdle, right? Like you said, you did everything but witchcraft. You probably would have tried witchcraft if it was an option to get you better, right? But you went through all these different aspects. What was it for you that was the turning point when you said, I can't do this anymore. It's not worth it. It's time for surgery?
I mean, the endless hours I did of physical therapy, and like I said, I always overdo it, right? So workman's comp or insurance, they'll prescribe you physical therapy, and it's usually like 2 days a week or maybe 3 days a week. I was doing something every day, and I was probably, my abdomen looked probably the best that it had ever been because of all these planks and side planks I was doing, but I was still in pain. I was strengthening muscles, and my core and walking regularly, but endless effort over days and days and a couple months. Doing something and not seeing a result, that really, it got to the point where I'm like, yeah, I need to do this. And then that sneeze, a simple sneeze, right? And it sounds funny and ridiculous, but it's true. It's like a cough and the sneeze and throwing my back out and having to start all over from scratch, and then getting that lateral shift where I was crooked. I mean, it lasted a couple weeks. And so after that microdiscectomy, being back to work for a year, and then throwing my back out again and feeling like I went back to zero, at some point you give up, and I wanted to get back to work as soon as possible. That was what pushed me to where nothing else is working. Like, let's do this. Let's get rid of these damaged, degenerated discs, and let's put some Gucci artificial ones in there. Right. So
Dr. Lanman, he said it on our podcast with him, but I think it's so true. He's like, you start chipping away at the corners and you start to realize your life is just getting smaller and smaller because of your pain. And the fact that a sneeze can take you out is like, what else are you supposed to do at that point? Like that your quality of life has just diminished so much, and you can't live that way, especially when you're younger and you're like, I have my whole life ahead of me. I can't live my life like this for the next 60 years.
Simple tasks around the house, like bending over to pick something up, or use the bathroom, walking to the bathroom, or getting in and out of your car. Everything hurts, and you're debilitated. And yeah, like I said, it puts you in a dark place because your friends are taking trips. You're missing out on like weddings or little, like I didn't go see my parents up north, because I'm originally from Salinas, on the Central Coast here, and I wasn't going up north to see my family. Like, I couldn't drive to go, I couldn't drive more than 30, 40 minutes without like excruciating pain. And like I said, it got to a point where I'm like, dude, this isn't a life worth living. Like and you feel like, again, you feel like you're going to do it by yourself. No one understands. And it's like, man, I'm still young and I still want to live my life. And I'm limited. Is this going to be forever? And so, yeah, like you take for granted the simple little everyday tasks. So working as a cop, you deal with like a lot of drug users and whatnot. And you're like, man, you're throwing like perfectly healthy spines over here, and you're throwing it all away doing this kind of stuff. And it's just like, I'm glad I'm past those days. I'm glad I'm able to speak on it. And man, there's not a day that goes by that I don't thank God. And I'm happy that like, man, I got a second chance.
I'm really glad that you talk about the comprehensive perspective on it all, because I think, it's really easy to tend to silo it and say, look at it from like a purely professional or work perspective, right? Of like, a lot of people talk about, like I couldn't work for X period of time. And that's kind of how we end up siloing it. But you talk about, and this is what every patient goes through, right? Is like, yes, I couldn't work for a period of time, but when I'm not working, it's not like I was hanging out with friends and really relaxing and enjoying my time. Everything else got really narrow-minded as well, right? Like you lose your social circle, you lose the ability to go clear your head and work out and do all these other aspects. Like it's not a single facet. It is this multifaceted thing. And the chipping away at the corners is what we always talk about. I also love that you talk, I think as when we think about back injuries, we tend to think about extreme motion and extreme damage, right? And so someone's like, oh, I was squatting 500 pounds in the squat rack and blew my disc out. Well, that makes sense, right? Or I was power cleaning, or I tried to pick up a concrete block from the ground and it was 80 pounds. I blew my back out. But the majority of stories are patients doing nothing, right? It is sneezing, it's coughing. Dr. Lanman tells his own story, standing at his dinner table and like waiting to go to dinner with his wife, and he blows his disc, and he has to crawl.
Like opening mail up, and he's just like,
but he has to crawl into the next room, right? And I think we tend to we almost over exaggerate what it takes, for a healthy spine, because you look at yourself, unbelievable shape, took care of your body your whole life. Like, why am I disc degenerating? And then at the end of the day, it's a sneeze that puts me out. It's not something else. It's these little tiny things. I'm really curious. You get to go through all of this because you actually had 2 different surgeries, right? You had the microdiscectomy, and then you had the 3-level disc. For patients that are going through either one of those procedures, whether it's a microdiscectomy or the lumbar disc replacement, was recovery what you expected it to be? Because I think most people would assume microdiscectomy is really easy. You're going to be back on track right away. And then the disc replacement is a larger surgery, going to take a lot longer, and I'm probably going to be more limited. But you kind of just told us the exact opposite story, where you had the microdisc and you were more limited than you were after you had your disc replacement done, obviously after a period of time.
Yeah, the microdiscectomy, the surgery, it was what I expected. It hurt, but I was still able to move around and do these kind of things and all. And like I was running by like week 7 or so. So that's what I expected, but I expected that I was going to feel better. I expected that I was going to be 100% and everything. And then when I got the 3-level artificial disc replacement, I expected it wasn't going to hurt as much. But it hurt. I didn't expect that it was going to hurt. And then all of a sudden, oh, we're feeling good. I thought I was going to feel, thought it was going to hurt, but I thought I was going to feel like a gradual, it was weird with me. It was like 3 weeks of like intense pain. And then out of nowhere, it's like, oh shoot, I'm good. I'm doing so much better now. But the microdiscectomy, like I just never felt 100%. With the artificial disc, I felt like, okay, I'm going to be good. Like, I feel like I'm going to be okay. And with recovery, just some suggestions with recovery. If you have like a spouse or family member or somebody that could stay with you, it's just gonna make life so much easier. That get active as soon as you can. If you can, even if you can only take like a walk from here to 8 feet out, like do that throughout the day. Get that body moving. One of the biggest things, and I still use it to this day, is the little, the thing to pick up trash, that little extended arm thing, that little claw. Oh man, that thing was clutch when I was going through recovery, both the microdiscectomy and the artificial disc replacement. And I still have it at the house. And sometimes like, reaching over like the sofa to grab something, I got so good at that thing that,
we should all just be using it.
Yeah, that. And then if you can install a bidet in the bathroom, that helps a lot. And then just keeping a positive outlook on things. Because recovery, and I learned this like going to physical therapy, recovery isn't like, a progressive slope. It's like, it's kind of like this, and sometimes it'll be kind of like this. And then all of a sudden you're feeling amazing. So just, keeping a positive outlook on the recovery.
I was going to ask you like how much you thought your outlook and your mindset impacted recovery. Yeah.
I kind of always, you have your dark moments. You have those times where you're going to be depressed. You're going to cry. You're going to be like, man, like I'm only in my 30s and like, it's just going to get worse from here. And I'm supposed to like, how am I going to be when I'm in my 60s or 70s? Like it's very depressing because it's the uncertainty. That's the hardest thing is for sure the uncertainty. But yeah, I always held on to that hope, that you go through those moments of hope and just thinking everything's gonna be all right. And, like, I don't know, you just have that mindset of like, nah, this isn't going to put me down. And, but yeah, it's definitely easier said than done, but just keep the hope, keep a positive outlook, stay distracted, fortunately for me, I had a lot of good people around me, a lot of close friends that would come visit me. Someone would come visit me on duty. Sometimes after work, they'd bring me some food and just come hang out, misery loves company kind of thing. Right. So, my friend's coming over. I'm like, hey, like, what do you want to eat? Like, I'll pick up a pizza or a sandwich and just come in and hang out with you and stay distracted. I read a lot, you know, I used my Kindle a lot. I hadn't played video games in like over 10, 15 years. But my brother was like, hey, like me and like, you know, my cousin and a bunch of friends, like, he's like, hey, I play with them online, Call of Duty. And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do all that. And then at some point I gave in, I bought a PS5 and I was able to reconnect with friends from back home. And, you know, it was like, instead of going out with the boys and grabbing dinner or drinks, it's like, we got online and we were able to like, you know, kind of be like our own therapist and like talk about our day and have some guy time. And so that all kept me distracted and like, it brought in some smiles, you know, every day. And with that, keeps you away from thinking the pain. Cause when you have back pain, you're thinking about pain all the time. And not only that, but you're thinking, if I go out or if I do something, I'm like, how am I going to feel tomorrow morning? You know? So yeah, just positive outlook, stay distracted, you know, surround yourself with, you know, with your friends and all of that and just have to keep the hope.
You shed a lot of light on this, and I think you're fortunate that you got ahead of the game and you were very educated and you educated yourself in this space. Unfortunately, I think you see a lot of the flip side of that, which is people start looking after they possibly get a fusion done or get something done because they think, oh, this isn't what I expected it to be. When you're going through that discernment phase, where were you going to find information? I think it's really helpful for patients to say, hey, if I'm going through this process, where do I look? Where were you finding the information to arm yourself with the knowledge that you needed to make a decision?
I just Google searching, going on YouTube. And then from there, I would see like, for example, when I did artificial disc replacement, when I searched that, you'll get a certain amount of things. But then I saw I don't know how I got to that. There's a surgeon up in, I think, Germany, popular guy, Dr. Lanman knows him.
Dr. Bertagnoli.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I went on his page and like, and he has, I'm sure he still has it on there now, but there's like testimonials of like people that wrote in letters and whatnot. So I went and just like I said, going down a rabbit hole and just going down these channels. And I saw what he talked about disc replacement, how long he's been doing it. Then I read those testimonials. And there was actually somebody that I forgot about this. There was one of the testimonials, cause I was looking at like who's had a 3 level, you know?
Yeah.
And I found somebody who had a L3 through S1 disc replacement and his email was on there. And so I emailed him like, hey man, I'm looking at getting disc replacement. Probably not going to fly out to Germany to do it and all, but like, how are you feeling? Were you able to keep up like some athleticism? Like what was your recovery capacity? And he had mentioned that, he goes, hey, like the first year you're kind of like a little like worried about your back. And I think he said he was in a car accident. And so he was worried about his back, got x-rays and he was fine. And he goes, it gets to the point where eventually like, oh, you're confident, you know what your back can and can't handle. And he was like, my back can handle everything I've put it through. But yeah, just simple Google and YouTube searching. And I would just go down different little channels. And I mean, I had so much time on my hands. I'm at home. So I'm looking for answers but I wish there was more, you know, YouTube videos. I wish there was more of this, you know, and I hope that you guys continue interviewing patients because it's nice to hear those success stories. And it's helped at work too, because I will have a coworker who same thing, had back issues. I think he got a laminectomy or something. And I told him about like my disc replacement. I'm like, hey man, like this helped you. Like if you can get a disc replacement, I would recommend you do that. And he ended up having to get a fusion, I think, in the L5S1 because his disc was just too far gone. But he did that hybrid thing where they did a fusion on the L5S1 and he got disc replacement on the L4, L5. And I just saw him back full duty at work a couple weeks ago. I mean, I was so stoked for him. He was hurting and he had been out for a while. And now to see him in uniform, like back to full duty and seeing that he did disc replacement, that was pretty dope. I was super happy to see that. And I've had a few other coworkers and friends who say, hey, like that disc replacement, like how's it feel? Because, you know, I've had back pain forever and I have a bulging disc and this and that. And I always tell them, I'm like, hey man, if you're ever gonna get a surgery, you know, definitely get second opinions. And I tell everybody, go to Dr. Lanman. Like yeah, you'll have to pay like a consultation fee, but Dr. Lanman is so good that he'll tell you what you can do. Mm-hmm. You go to other doctors and like I said, like you get like wishy-washy ones or like, where it's just shady, where you feel like, oh, well, maybe this will work. Then like Dr. Lanman will tell you, hey, look, these are the issues. This is okay. This is okay. We can do this. And if he says that you can do it or you can't do it, then that's the answer right there.
And I think that confidence comes from the knowledge that he's built over time. I love that.
Being specialized.
For sure.
Right?
For sure. And I think one of the parts that I really love that you've talked about, you know, as you went through this journey, you essentially highlighted two of the people that have done more discs than almost anybody in the world, Dr. Bertagnoli and Dr. Lanman. And it comes out because those guys have built a presence for being known to do motion preserving work. And they've done so much research. I mean, you can talk to Lanman about anything, good, bad, indifferent, infection, biomechanics, he can give you an answer for it, right? And I think that confidence from the surgeon gets passed down to confidence in a patient as well, right? I think it's tough to go into a patient journey where you were talking about where it hits the day of or the week before, and patients are nervous about getting surgery, right? I mean, it's a big surgery. It is so much different than anything else because it takes up so much of your life, right? You talked about it like being bedridden in your social life, your emotional life, your professional life. And so I think being able to find a surgeon that can exude that confidence and give you that confidence in yourself is amazing. And that comes through being tried and tested over time, right? And seeing what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure.
Some of the questions you ask are so important to reiterate here. You asking your workers' comp surgeon, how many of these have you done? When it comes to motion preservation, being specialized in it, the carpentry that it takes to do it successfully is really important. So talking about motion preservation, I want to make sure we also say on this podcast, if you go and ask about it, that is such an important question to ask. Like your instinct said, hey, I don't feel confident or comfortable enough for you to do this if you haven't done it before, which is a fair thing to feel if you've got 3 that you need done. Asking your surgeon, how many have you done? Do you specialize in this? More and more surgeons are specializing in motion preservation. You look at the body differently when you're doing motion versus when you're doing fusion. So that mindset and knowing how to work those puzzle pieces is so important. So I just wanted to reiterate that of, you know, you ask those questions, which are so, so important when you're making that decision.
Yeah. And it's difficult to find like there's no, or at least I never saw one, but like when you're looking for a surgeon, there's no website or anything where it shows like Madden ratings, right? Where it says like, hey, these are all the surgeons that we have in this area. This guy's a 99 across the board. This guy's an 80. Like there was nothing like that. And so, do your research, you know, no matter what kind of surgery at this point, no matter if I have a shoulder injury or anything, I'm going to get second opinions and I'm going to search and see who are like the world renowned, like which ones are the best of the best. And it's tough, but do your research because you'll thank yourself later. Cause, a lot of people, so I'll speak on my field is you'll see a lot of officers who got out of the field early because they had an injury, and sometimes they went to the wrong surgeon or got the wrong doctor. And then maybe they didn't do their physical therapy, and maybe they don't have that mindset of like, you know, staying with your physical therapy and pushing through and strengthening the body. And it's sad to say that you see a lot of officers who work a desk assignment and they're overweight now because, you know, they had a bad surgery or they didn't keep up with it and they just, you know, their body just starts to fall apart like that, you know. And I didn't want to be that older officer who's just sitting there and overweight and always injured and always blaming it on the injury. And so I wanted to do everything I could by finding the right doctor, keeping up with the PT, you know, finding, like I said, I could have gotten a fusion. If I didn't know any better and I got lazy and I didn't do research, I would have done a fusion. I probably would have at some point because my back wouldn't have been getting better, and I would have gone to that point, that threshold where I'm just like, yeah, I can't live like this anymore. And I have that big mentality of like, if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always had. And so, doing my research and finding and seeing disc replacement and seeing that, man, there's some hope here and it looks like it works. And this doctor, like, it looks like he knows his stuff. And I can assure you, Dr. Todd Lanman does know his stuff. And so best decision I could have made. My only regret in all of this is I wish I would have never gone the microdiscectomy. I wish I would have just done the 3-level disc replacement from the get-go. We could have skipped that. I could have been back to work a year sooner. And yeah, but that's what I was given. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's what was available at the time, and that's what workman's comp, you know, gave me and whatnot. So yeah, it was an expensive surgery. I know that's always tough with people, is like the financials part of it. I was in a fortunate situation where like I'm not married, I don't have kids or anything like that, and so I was able to pull out a loan, and that's how badly I wanted my life back, and I wanted my health, and I wanted the best um, result out of this.
And that was an investment in your life, which has worked out, right? You're back at
Yeah,
work.
this is your one life, your one
Yeah.
back, and of course I was yeah, there was no other option.
Yeah.
I think you also brought up a very, very, very good point on the specificity. We talk about finding people that specialize, right? That doesn't hold true just for motion preservation as well. That is, you should find someone that specializes in the pathology that you have and the treatment that you need, right? Whether, if you need to go get a microdiscectomy, you should find someone that does 400 of them a year, 200 of them a year, right? It's the same thing. It's the same thing about complex deformity, right? We sat down with Alan Daniels and Basil Debo, and they do a ton of complex deformity. If you're doing that, you should go to the people that do a lot of it. You've had a 3-level disc replacement done, and that is what is considered off-label, right? Right now, there are 2 levels that can be approved.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I would like to ask you about is how did you decide to make that decision versus, doing a hybrid or doing something that was on label or what they offered you? How did you decide I'm going to go do this thing that, again, by reimbursement standards, it's considered off label. But like you said, there are surgeons out there like Dr. Lanman who said, no, I can absolutely do this. How do you decide to go get an off label, 3-level procedure done?
Just seeing that he had it himself, that he was off label, and him explaining, because we had a good talk about he was explaining everything, how like insurances work and workman's comp and all that. Just seeing how he did it himself, and how one of the things he mentioned to me, and I've heard it since then, I've heard it throughout other avenues, is that the 3-level for some reason does better than like a 1-level, or like the patients recover so much better and whatnot. So just hearing that, seeing that he had done it himself, and seeing that, I absolutely did not want a fusion, let alone I wasn't going to do a single level fusion. Like, no, if I want to keep my mobility, my flexibility, and I just, knowing that fusions will over time like degenerate the adjacent discs faster, it was a no brainer. I was like, I'm going to go all in. I wasn't going to do, a hybrid, or just because insurances were saying, oh, we could do, a hybrid, or we can only do 2 at a time. No, like let's do the whole thing. And that just comes from just talking to Dr. Lanman and his experience, and just the way he's seen it several 100,000, thousands of times. And so and that came with the trust that I had in him.
No, we're really fortunate that we get to sit down with a bunch of surgeons that do so much research and advance this field. Motion preservation itself as a whole has advanced so much in the last 20 years. I mean, you're the first disc that came on the market about 20 years ago, and it's been a slow adoption curve. But now in the last couple of years, you've got a lumbar disc replacement, which you had. Dr. Lanman does a lot of. There is TOPS by Premium Spine, who does a facet replacement. Dr. Lamb was also part of a total joint replacement study for the lumbar spine, which is still through clinical studies. But there's more technology and there's more things that are coming out that give patients a larger opportunity to get something other than fusion, right? Because that didn't exist 20 years ago. So it's just a different standard of care.
And it's crazy now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Dr. Lanman, hasn't he reversed fusions in the neck? That's wild.
We're finding out what can be done, right? And that gets done by people pushing the envelope and trying to provide better care. I mean, at the end of the day, everything that he is doing is in the essence of trying to provide better care to his patients, right?
Yeah, no, he cares, and he wants you to do better. He wants to get you to your goals, back to your goals, and everything. Forgot to mention that after I got my surgery done, the 3-level disc replacement, I still have to check in with my workman's comp surgeon, because he's through the city. He's like my primary, care. So when I met with him, I was like, hey, I had my surgery done. So he looked at the incision and everything, and I could show you that afterwards. He's like, how you feeling? I was like, I'm good. He's like, okay. He's like, well, I'm going to go off of whatever your doctor tells you. If he clears you for full duty, then I'll clear you for full duty. So I would check in with Dr. Lanman, like, hey, I need I'm clear for full duty kind of form. So he gave it to me, and then I sent it to the workman's comp doctor, and he cleared me for full duty. And then I went in because I used to have to go in for a checkup every like month and a half or so. And so I go in one day and I'm meeting with one of his doctors because the guy's, he's always in surgery, he's always busy. But one day I come out of the office, I'm done with my appointment, and I hear Andrew, and it's the workman's comp surgeon. And he's like, hey, come here. And he goes, how are you feeling? And I go, I feel amazing. And then he goes, I started looking into that Dr. Lanman guy, and I looked at your images. That's incredible. Like, he was just astonished at like how he's like, man, he really pushes the limits. And he goes, dude, you did phenomenal work. And again, it goes back to and this guy's a phenomenal surgeon in his own right. But just like the different level or different category of what's available. And so I just want to throw that in of how even he was impressed and everything. And he was like, man, like I wouldn't have done this, but you got people who push the limits, and you won't know if you don't try it. Right. And that's where Dr. Lanman, kudos to him, and, being a wild man. So,
well, that's how you change standards, right? Yeah. Like, someone has to be out there and do it. And then other surgeons will see it and be like, oh, wow, I didn't even think about this, right? This is outside of the box of what I'm living in. And then that starts to broaden it. And so we're seeing that more and more. I think like motion is starting to have a moment again, which is really exciting. Technology is catching up to where we can have more options. And I think more and more surgeons are going to move in that direction, because nobody wants a fusion. If you talk to a spine surgeon, they don't want a fusion either, right? So it's still a problem we've got to solve. And Dr. Lanman is definitely at the forefront helping us do that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And we're out here in California too. And I think we'd be remiss, like, you talk about those surgeons, Dr. Kachatarian out in Salt Lake City, almost exclusively motion preservation. Dr. Sladicki in Steamboat Springs, almost exclusively motion preservation. You're getting people that are moving this direction, which I think is really exciting, for us to be able to see, and for surgeons, but for patients, right? And the care that they can get.
Yeah. And another thing I forgot too was when I asked my workman's comp surgeon, I go, hey, like I want to, would you do this 3-level, like, out of insurance, and I'll pay you out of pocket and all that? And I'll never forget, he goes, my guy, he goes, just the hospital fees and all that alone, you're looking at well over $100,000 for this. And Dr. Lanman, what I ended up paying, it was less than $100,000. So also, if you're looking into doing this, it's outpatient, which is beautiful, because if you spend the night, you already know you're going to jack up the bill. But it's outpatient. So look into all those things as well.
Can you talk about one other thing, as you're going through the surgery experience, you went and had it done at a surgery center instead of having it done at a hospital. Can you talk about that experience? Because we are seeing more surgeons go to surgery centers. We're seeing more patients seek out surgery centers because they can do a lot of the same day discharge.
For me, the biggest thing was, one, I didn't want to stay in a hospital. The other thing too is, like, very well that that's going to be very expensive. And so if I'm able to do outpatient, yeah, I'm going to save a couple bucks there. But it was just, I wanted to recover at home. And like I said, they took very good care of me. The staff was great. They gave me, Dr. Lanman prescribed me all like the meds that I needed. Oh, that's another thing too. When I did my microdiscectomy, I didn't take anything, like nothing. Typical, like, I wanted to tough it out. Like, I didn't take anything, no ibuprofen, no muscle relaxers, no pain meds. I did the microdiscectomy without anything. When I did the 3-level disc replacement, you best believe I was taking, I think I could take my muscle relaxer and my painkillers, I think every 6 hours. Trust me, I was taking them every 6 hours. Yeah, that's what I looked forward to. I would just eat enough. I would eat enough like cashews and applesauce just so I could take my pain meds. So another thing I would say is definitely, start tapering off of that. Like, if you don't need it, don't take it. But yeah, definitely taper off of that. And it's okay. Like doctor, they're there for a reason. Just be cognizant of that. And I think I stopped taking pain meds after like the 2.5-3 week mark. I think I started tapering off, taking like maybe 1 a day or like just before bed so I could sleep. So yeah, be cognizant of that.
Such a powerful story for patients to be able to hear, especially when you have limited yourself so much leading up to that, right? And you kind of start to think, this is my new normal, or this is what I'm going to have to get used to, whether it's the pain, or I either have to accept the pain and do the things that I want to do, or completely limit myself and get to do none of those things. And I think that is such a powerful thing for patients to hear. I'm sure the police department is excited to have you back and be able to do all those things, but we really, really appreciate you sitting down and telling your story, because it's really powerful for patients to hear.
Yeah, no, of course you guys are welcome. And again, thank you for having me here. And yeah, I hope this, this helps somebody else who's, you know, inquiring about disc replacement or who's unsure and all that. And, you can leave my info on the podcast if you want. I could put my Instagram page on there. They can reach out, more than welcome. Cause I needed that when I was going through it. I wanted to talk to as many people, and I wanted to, get a feel for, I had questions. What's the recovery like? Like, how do you feel now? Like, are you able to move the way you used to? And I move exactly the way I used to be able to move. My back it's nice now that I can bend over as many times as I want, lean over, and no discomfort, no pain. It's crazy. Again, it feels like I got a brand new back, like I got a do-over. And so, yeah, thank you guys for having me.
The way the body is supposed to move. We'll absolutely put your information in. We've tried to build this community of education around spine surgery with surgeons, and now we're going to have more and more patients, right, that are going to be able to communicate and talk through this. So it's really powerful, and we appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, of course. You guys are welcome.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thanks, Andrew.
All right. See you guys.
Yep.